Hello everybody, I am Charlie from Dr. Wen, and welcome along to a brand new Doctor Who YouTube video. As promised, I am back, and today, since it is a Friday, then I'm doing another chapter of my fan series. Story 1 in my fan series is called Count Your Shadows, and features the First Doctor, Ian and Barbara, but mainly has focused on Ian for these last few chapters. Since it's chapter 6, that means it is the final chapter, so it's the finale of this entire story, which I've been doing for 3 weeks now, which is quite impressive. So yeah, feel free to post your opinions down in the comments below on which your favourite chapter was in this entire story, and just your opinions on the story in general. I'd love to hear what you think, and stick to the end to find out what my next story in the fan series will be, involving the Second Doctor and Jamie McCrimmon, and yes, what tomorrow's video will be as well, and, you know, the conclusion to this entire 3-week-long story. So, without further ado, let's get into this video, and I hope you enjoy. So, this is Count Your Shadows, Chapter 6. Oh my goodness. Ian fell back onto the sofa. You are the Doctor, aren't you? Why are you working at a university? It's just a cover. I'm actually guarding an underground vault. Doctor, Nardole murmured. Right, anyway, let's ask the important questions first. What were you running away from, and how do we stop it? I don't know, Doctor, Ian admitted, but I do know where it is. It tried to attack me at Coal Hill School. Shall we go there? Of course, Ian, the Doctor spoke. The best way to find an alien's weakness is to see it. The Doctor strode over to his TARDIS and opened its door, a squeaking sound spreading across the room. You first, the Doctor muttered. It probably doesn't look like the one you're used to. Hesitantly, Ian walked over to the TARDIS and stepped inside. Indeed, this TARDIS did look a lot different. It was dark grey and much taller. Glowing blue roundels were fitted onto the walls, and the time rotor glowed bright yellow. Circular symbols decorated the domed ceiling, and it looked suspiciously like Gallifreyan. You've redecorated, Ian declared, his eyes still scanning the room. I don't like it. Why does everybody say that? The Doctor muttered. He walked over to a screen and typed some coordinates in. A beeping noise emitted from it every time he pressed it. Suddenly, a wheezing, groaning noise shuddered through the TARDIS. I see you're still leaving your brakes on, Ian proclaimed. Of course I do, the Doctor said. After a few seconds, the noise stopped, and then everything went quiet. You could hear a pin drop. Ian walked out of the TARDIS, the Doctor close behind. They were back in Ian's science classroom, where Barbara, or the monster she had turned into, had attacked Ian. Shards of glass still littered the floor, droplets of dried blood speckled across the ground. Wow, the Doctor squealed. I haven't seen anything this exciting since I met the superhero called the Ghost. But that's a story for another time. He grinned. What now, Doctor? Ian queried. Do we look for her? Barbara, I mean. Of course, the Doctor responded. He strode out of the classroom, looking down the corridors. I'll go this way. He pointed to the left. You go that way. His finger moved over to the right. On it, said Ian. After what was probably 10 minutes, but felt like hours, Ian arrived in an enormous hall. It was circular and lit up brightly by yellow lights across the domed wooden ceiling. That isn't right, Ian thought to himself. This isn't part of the school. I've never been here in my life. Suddenly, a droning noise came from the ceiling, and the outer row of yellow lights began to flicker. They continued to do for a few seconds, then completely turned off. The second row did then, the third, then the fourth, then the fifth, and the sixth, until only one light remained on in the centre, illuminating Ian's figure like a spotlight. Ian couldn't see anything except the light and himself. The rest of the room was in complete blackness, shadows shrouding whatever horrors lurked there. Instantaneously, 2 figures emerged from the darkness. These figures were the 2 doctors Ian knew, the one he travelled with, and the university professor. But something was different about them, something odd. Their skin was pale and their faces gaunt. They had black orbs for eyes. Who are you? Ian stammered, not sounding as brave as he had hoped. And what do you want? They didn't answer, but Ian didn't particularly care, as 12 other figures walked towards him as well. They looked like the doctors as well, also infected by the Vashta Nerada. Their skin was pale and their eyes were black. They all looked rather odd. One had a stick of celery on his lapel, Another wore sand shoes with a suit and some 3D glasses askew on his forehead. "They aren't sand shoes," the man shouted. "Sorry," Ian murmured. Ian began to fit the pieces together. He now knew that the Doctor could change appearance, so these men and women were probably all of his incarnations so far. It would explain the odd clothing. Suddenly, they all spoke in a low, monotonous voice. "Doctor, I am coming for you. I will kill all of your precious little companions, strip you of everything you know, and then—" They lowered their voices, whispering now, "I will destroy you." "You don't understand," Ian pleaded. "I'm not the Doctor." They ignored him. "Look above you, Doctor." He knew he wasn't the Doctor, but he tilted his head upwards anyway. What he saw was horrible. Suspended above him were the bodies of over 40 people, their arms plastered to their sides, their faces blue and veiny. But the thing that worried Ian the most were the 3 people in the centre of the room, right near the panelled ceiling. The corpses were none other than himself, Barbara, and Susan. Ian was overcome with a wave of anger. Not just anger, pure, unchanneled rage. Ian reached his hand out, and it glowed bright red. He shot 14 beams of light from it, leaving a hole in each of the Doctor's heads. They crumpled to the ground simultaneously. "I am in a dream," Ian bellowed, "and I am in control now." Ian was interrupted by the sound of something falling, something large and heavy, and it was falling straight at him. Ian bolted over to the side of the room, just as a large figure crashed down onto the wooden floor, leaving dents in it. Rubble was strewn over the room. As soon as Ian saw him, he forgot about the Daleks and the Cybermen, the Sontarans and the Master. This thing was made of destruction. He was forged in evil and anger. He wore spiky black armour that glittered as he walked. His face Ian couldn't see, for it was shrouded in black mist. After a short while, the figure began to cup his hands, and purple energy poured from the small slits in his armour. It grew into a large ball, then white electrical energy shot at the now levitating ball. It now looked like a ball of pure purple lightning. "Prepare to die, Doctor." The figure spoke coldly. The ball of energy flew at Ian, hurtling towards him at 100 miles per hour. Ian willed a white marble column to appear in front of him, and it worked. The pillar exploded just as the ball hit it, showering Ian's face and clothes with rust and rubble. "Don't think that's going to stop me," the figure bellowed loudly, his deep voice deafeningly loud. He summoned 5 more balls of green electricity now, and fired them at Ian. He willed a brick wall to appear, and it did. However, he didn't concentrate, and it was a wall of glass. Ian screamed. Hundreds of shards of glass hit him hard, and blood was running down his face. Ian shot his hand out, willing this thing to die, as his face was searing with pain. He was probably the cause of everything that had happened since Barbara went missing. It did nothing. "That's not going to work, Doctor," the figure shouted. "And why is that?" Ian responded. "Who put you in this dream in the first place? This may all be a dream, but I am still very real, Doctor, and I will come for you in the real world." Suddenly, a tendril of shadow burst from the ground. It flew straight at Ian, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. It shot straight through Ian's chest. He was lifted high off the ground as more tendrils emerged, elevating the figure so he was level with Ian. "Vashta Nerada," he whispered. "Kill." Then the screaming started. Ian had never been in more pain. All his organs were burning, and his skin was melting. Literally, his entire body was being eaten alive by a swarm of Vashta Nerada. He could see his bones. "To prepare you for what is coming, Doctor," the figure whispered in what was Ian's ear. His vision blackened, and Ian died. Ian didn't really die. He awoke from being unconscious for the 3rd time today, and sat up slowly. He was in the TARDIS. Next to him was a kindly old man, his bony left hand holding a wooden cane. At his other side, a woman in her 30s sat, wearing a pearl necklace and a white turtleneck. The Doctor, Barbara. "Are you okay, Ian?" Barbara said. "You've been unconscious for 2 days. What's happened?" "This happened, Barbara." The Doctor spoke. He pulled something from his coat's pocket. It looked like some sort of beetle. It had intricate green patterns on its forehead. It is known as a dream bug. It causes whoever it infects to go into a dreamlike state. Interestingly enough, they are only found on Gallifrey, my home planet. Ian stood up and stretched his legs. Doctor, in the dream, there was this figure. He told me he put me in the dream. Is it possible he programmed this bug to make me have that exact dream? I'm afraid so, Ian, and since he was in the dream, he must have used some sort of computer to be in the dream himself, like a video game. Like what? Barbara asked. Spoilers, the doctor muttered, a grin spreading across his face. Ian, the doctor spoke, a worried expression on his face. Did this figure look anything like... The doctor moved a monitor over to Ian. This? On the screen was indeed a figure, but it wasn't the picture he was interested in. It was what was below it, because in small text at the bottom of the screen read 3 black words. Minister of War. So, there we go. That was a pretty, intense final chapter, quite, a little bit gory in a way, and I really enjoyed writing, reading, and recording that, and yes, it's been really fun to do all of Count Your Shadows. It's been such a fun story to write, because it's not a typical Doctor Who story, it's more of a kind of a weird sort of dream state for Ian, so I did quite like that. Other stories like this will focus on the companion more than the Doctor, that's what I'm aiming to do. So the second Doctor story will be mainly set on Skaro, and the Doctor will come face to face with the Daleks' new leader in an alternate dimension. So that sounds like a pretty intense story, and it's going to be 6 chapters as well, so chapter 1 will be coming on Monday. Like I said, feel free to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy my daily Doctor Who content, give this video a like if you've enjoyed it, and yes, I really hope you enjoyed. Comment down below what your opinions on this chapter were, and what your favourite chapter was in this entire story. I really appreciate it if you did that, and yes, I hope you enjoyed. Next time. So tomorrow I'm going to be doing a brand new ranking video where I rank all episodes that include the Master in New Who. I will see you then, and goodbye.